You're listening to the Journey podcast. Are you ready to explore the transformative potential of functional medicine in nurturing gut health and well-being? Stay tuned for today's episode. Hi, I'm Petra Brunbauer, and with decades of experience with sadness, pain, anxiety, and stress, I finally figured out how to leave all that behind. And this podcast shows you how to break free permanently so you can reclaim your sanity and find the self-esteem and energy to go after the life you desire. With real talk about mental health, holistic healing, and the tough journey of coming out the other end. This is the Journey Podcast. Welcome to today's episode. In this episode, we delve into the realm of functional medicine and its profound influence on gut health. Our conversation revolves around the innovative approach of functional medicine, which seeks to uncover underlying causes of health issues rather than focusing solely on symptom management. Today's guest shares enlightening perspectives on the intricate connection between functional medicine and gut health, and we explore the pivotal role of a balanced gut microbiome in overall well-being. We discuss how functional medicine embraces a holistic framework to restore gut health through personalized treatment plans, and investigating the integrative strategies of functional medicine and how it can support healing and well-being. Rachel Hurmence is a functional medicine and holistic health coach that works in a network of clinicians to provide her clients with lab testing, treatment plans, supplement protocols, and health coaching. She works with a wide variety of people who struggle with thyroid conditions, gastrointestinal problems, hormone concerns, or autoimmune conditions. Rachel has a degree in psychology and studied at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition to receive her health coaching certification. She has been coaching for 3 years and is currently studying to take the board exam through the National Board of Health and Wellness Coaching at the end of 2023. She has experience in women's health and weight loss coaching and has worked with a variety of functional medicine and naturopathic doctors. She is originally from Georgia, but moved to Utah 2 years ago to pursue her passion for outdoor adventures in the mountains. Let's meet Rachel Hurmence. Hi, Rachel. It's so great to have you on the podcast today. I've been looking forward to getting to chat with you because functional medicine and gut health are both such interesting topics when it comes to holistic healing. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here as well because I think this is a topic that a lot of listeners can relate to. So I'm excited to dive in. And do you want to share a little bit about yourself and your own story and how you came to do what you do?
Yeah, of course. So I'm a functional medicine health coach, and I kind of stumbled into it on accident, I think. I went to school for psychology, and so I have a bachelor's in psychology. And throughout my program, throughout college, I struggled with a lot of my own health issues. I had hormone issues, and doctors put me on birth control, and that affected my hormones. And I really struggled a lot with my health during that time. Before that, I was generally very healthy, so it was really hard for me to cope with. And so through that experience, I, went to doctor after doctor, and they just wanted to put me on medications, and they had their own side effects. And I just feel like I intuitively knew that there had to be a better way to take care of my health. And so I dove into a lot of research on my body, hormones, women's health, all of those things to figure out what was going on and how I could support my body in a more natural and holistic way. And through that process, I actually went and got a health coaching certification through the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. And I did that actually mostly out of a selfish pursuit to help my own body and really learn more for myself. And so I never really thought it was going to be a job or a career for me. But once I kind of got in and started getting really educated and understanding more about health, I just wanted to shout it from the rooftops and help other people get educated and heal their own body and take care of their health on their own. And so that's kind of how I stumbled into health coaching and then functional medicine later on.
Yeah, I love your journey, and you're resonating with a lot of things there because I think a lot of people find that they have some kind of challenge, whether it be a health challenge or an emotional, mental challenge, and they can't find an answer. And so they come to some different holistic complementary methods in the search for the answer to those challenges. So it's very interesting that you say that you went and got more education to find out for yourself. I find that so interesting. And do you want to maybe explain a little bit about what functional medicine is and how that differs from when you go see your regular GP or doctor? Are there differences, and how is that different?
Yeah, of course. So I think functional medicine, that phrase is kind of thrown around a lot these days, but there's little understanding about it. So I like to describe functional medicine as an alternative approach to healthcare where we're looking at the body as a fully connected system because, it is. We're all packaged up, all of our organs are in the same body and they're communicating, and all of our cells are communicating. So it's really important to look at the whole body to find the root cause of disease and the root cause of symptoms so that we can address those things instead of just masking them or addressing specific symptoms. And so I would say that it differs from traditional healthcare because we are looking at it at the body as a whole rather than specific body systems. You may go to your doctor and then you get referred to a specialist for a specific condition or a specific symptom. And, they may look at, for example, they might look at your gastrointestinal system, but, your gut is in your body. And so we want to look at all the other body systems that might be playing into those issues as well. So it's really all about getting to the root cause and taking a more holistic approach. And in doing that, I think we naturally gravitate towards more natural and holistic treatment options, through diet, exercise, lifestyle changes, and things like that, because that is going to impact all of the body rather than just one specific organ or body system.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned holistic because I feel like when we look at things sort of separated from other things, you mentioned, our body systems, organs, all of that. When we look at all those separately, it's sometimes very difficult to find the cause to our challenges because everything is interconnected. So yeah, wonderful that that's a holistic approach to health. Now, are there some things that you see more often than others when it comes to health challenges or health issues when people come to see you? Have you noticed any kind of trend in the last few years of complaints that people bring to you?
Definitely, definitely. So I primarily work with women, and a lot of them come to me with specific symptoms or conditions. And I commonly hear that they have gone to their doctor and everything looks normal, and they are maybe offered a medication, but seem to be very dismissed by their doctors. And, there are wonderful, wonderful doctors out there, but unfortunately, they are often overwhelmed with patients, and they also aren't given tons of education on, behavior change and nutrition and things like that. They're more educated on specific symptoms, conditions, and medications, which is absolutely wonderful and needed. But oftentimes that leaves the patient really wanting more support. And so, with that being said, with the women that I work with most often, I do see a lot of gastrointestinal issues, gut problems. I think that's pretty trendy right now, too, because people are realizing that it's not normal to be bloated and tired and all of those things all the time and to just not feel well overall. And so, a lot of gut issues. I work with a lot of women with thyroid issues as well. So, 1 in 8, I think it's 1 in 8 women are going to develop a thyroid condition in their lifetime. So, women specifically struggle with their thyroid health, and the thyroid is very, very sensitive to stress. And a lot of us are pretty stressed out these days. We've got a lot on our plate. So, I think that really plays into the thyroid issues. And so, I see that commonly as well. But one thing overall I hear from a lot of my clients that they come to me for is lack of energy and just chronic fatigue. A lot of times doctors will just kind of diagnose it as chronic fatigue and kind of leave it at that. But you aren't supposed to be tired all the time. I hope people know that. And so that's something that I work on with my clients a lot is improving their energy levels because a lot of women out there, are moms or they're working or both. And they've got a lot of other people to, show up for, including themselves. And when you're exhausted, you can't do that.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it's interesting that you mentioned stress because I feel like that has been on the rise, especially over the last few years, as sort of an underlying cause of many of the challenges that we're experiencing. And it's interesting that you have also noted that in your practice. And yeah, being fatigued is not a good state of being. So, how does all of that relate to when you mentioned the gut? How does that all come together? How does the gut play into how we feel energetically and stress and all of those things? How does the gut connect to all of that?
That is a great question. And there is more and more research coming out on that, day by day. There's a lot of research going into gut health now, and we're learning so much more than we did before. I think one thing that's pretty common is that when there is issues in the gut, we can say like gut dysbiosis, when there's imbalances in our microorganisms, which are the little bacteria that make up our gut. When there's imbalances or potentially inflammation or infections, our gut is in control of a lot of our nutrient absorption. And so, if there are issues in the gut, we may not be absorbing nutrients properly or enough from the foods that we're eating. So, this is actually something I see common too. A lot of people make the comment that they eat really healthy. They're like, yeah, I eat fruits and vegetables and protein and all of these things, but I'm still having a lot of these issues. So when we're looking at the gut, if there are problems there, we might not be actually extracting and absorbing nutrients from these healthy foods that we're eating. So that's when we can see deficiencies start to pop up. And when those deficiencies start to pop up, they do kind of manifest as sometimes fatigue and just tiredness. So I think there's such a connection between nutrient deficiencies and then our chronic fatigue. And then there are a lot of hormones that are actually converted inside of our gut. There's also neurotransmitters that are produced in our gut. That's something that people are talking about a lot now too. I feel like everyone has a different statistic, so I'm not sure what's completely accurate, but they say up to 80% of your serotonin is produced in your gut. So, that's a neurotransmitter that affects our mood. And so that's another thing that plays into, how we're feeling overall. That really stems from our gut too. So there's a lot of connection between our brain and the other parts of our body and our gut. Our gut kind of controls a lot of different things, and a lot of different things impact our gut. The foods that we're eating is probably the number one thing that can help or harm our gastrointestinal system.
Yeah, I'm a little bit afraid to ask you, but I was just going to ask you, are there maybe things that we are doing, maybe even unknowingly, to interfere with the good gut bacteria or that we're doing to harm our gut? Do you see that sometimes when you work with people that they might just not be aware that there are things that they're doing that's not great for their gut?
Yeah, actually, there's a lot of different things that is really, really normal culture and our society that isn't really helpful for our overall body, but specifically the gut. One thing that was a part of my journey, so it popped up into my head first thing, is hormonal birth control. So that was a big part of my story and something I talked to some of my clients about too. And there's more and more research coming out now how basically these synthetic hormones that we might be taking for birth control does have a large impact on our gut and can cause some inflammation within the gut, and it alters our healthy bacteria as well. And so I mentioned that because it was definitely a part of my story. I, really had no food sensitivities or allergies really when I was younger. Growing up, I really could eat kind of whatever I wanted and nothing really hurt my stomach or made me bloated or anything like that. And it really wasn't until I started on birth control, I was kind of on and off a few different types, that I realized, whoa, my gut is out of balance. There's foods now that are making me irritated and all of these different things. And so, like I mentioned before, as a part of my story, I just dove into a lot of research and educating myself. So I started looking into that. I'm like, oh, could birth control be the reason why I'm having these gut issues now? And turns out, yeah, it definitely could have been. Obviously, there could have been numerous factors, but I started to read some research that was suggesting that those hormones do alter our gut microbiome and can cause further deficiencies. And birth control is something that's super common. I think a lot of doctors are, put you on that at a young age now, and we don't really think anything of it because it's very, very normal. Most women are on some form of hormonal birth control, and that's something that's never really questioned until, things are going wrong, or, sometimes people don't even make that connection. So I think that's one thing. And then another thing is some of the foods that we eat are really destructive to our gut, specifically inflammatory foods, seed oils, sometimes when there's sensitivities to gluten, which this is definitely a debated topic, but there's lots of research to support that even if you don't have celiac disease, which is an autoimmune condition, a lot of people may be sensitive to gluten. There's different particles that can be irritating to our very thin gut lining. And so that can cause some inflammation and or leaky gut, if anyone's familiar with that phrase.
Mm-hmm. As you're talking about all of that, I'm getting the sense that as women, we might have some more very specific struggles when it comes to our gut health, maybe very different from men, because we also deal with the hormonal side a lot more and with the birth control, like you mentioned. So it sounds like as women, we might have some additional challenges there when it comes to our gut health.
Oh, absolutely. And I am not on TikTok too much, but there's lots of TikTok trends and things like that talking about how girls have gut problems. I absolutely think that is due to, hormones, the birth control, also a lot of the toxins that we're confronted with as women. We use a lot more beauty products, makeup, hair care, all of those different things that contain a lot of toxins that can be really harmful to our hormones and our gut. So yeah, I think women specifically are struggling a lot more, or maybe not a lot more, but in different ways than men are. With women too, our bodies are very complex. We are on a different cycle than men. Men are on a hormonally speaking, at least, they're on a 24-hour cycle. Whereas for women, we are around 28 days. That's different for everyone. But so there's a lot of different shifts that are happening. And so with more shifts and with kind of a longer timeline, there's a lot more that can kind of quote unquote go wrong. And that's something that we can troubleshoot and pinpoint, but it's really hard to do that when we aren't educated a lot on our cycles and our hormones and things like that. So a lot of women, feel like they're just kind of in the dark about what's really happening with their body.
Yeah, that makes sense because it's not generally something that's discussed at the doctor's office unless you specifically ask to have some support with that. So I do kind of feel like we don't get enough education on that and maybe not enough pointers as to where we could even start when we have questions about that. So that's a really great point. Now, one thing I want to ask you about is also stress, because I think stress has a huge effect on the body. And as you mentioned, as women, we often wear many, many hats, just like men, but we also have, the mother and career role to combine in many cases, or sometimes even single moms. And there can be a lot of stress in life. So how does that affect our gut health? Does that have any impact?
Oh, absolutely. I think that stress impacts our whole body. It impacts our nervous system. And I think that with stress, we can often find ourselves in that fight or flight, basically, where we have high levels of stress and we kind of remain there. So that's something I work with my clients on often too, is how to navigate that stress, because we are never going to live in a stress-free world. I think that's an unrealistic goal at this point. So it's really about managing stress so that it doesn't have a large impact on the gut and the whole body. So I talk to my clients about, really finding what sources of stress they have and how they personally can manage it. Because overall, if you are stressed, you're going to have high cortisol levels. Cortisol is a stress hormone, and that impacts. So I guess this is one way that stress indirectly affects the gut, but something that's important to note. So with that cortisol, your basically the cortisol has an inverse relationship with melatonin. A lot of people are familiar with melatonin because it's a sleep hormone, essentially. Sometimes people supplement with it if they have a hard time sleeping. So with cortisol, you're supposed to have a spike early in the morning and it tapers off throughout the day. And then melatonin does the opposite. It's supposed to be really, really low in the morning and then kind of increase in the evening to help you go to sleep. And so if you're really, really stressed, that cortisol might remain high. So you may not be receiving enough melatonin to kind of counteract that cortisol. And so then you're getting really, really poor sleep. So I think stress and poor sleep kind of go hand in hand. And then when we're talking about poor sleep, a lot of our digestive processes happen when we are sleeping. Our body kind of gets sort of like a reset. And if that's not happening, if you're not getting really deep quality sleep and enough sleep, your body isn't going to be properly digesting foods and getting ready for a new day. And so I think that's kind of feeding into why, and we don't need to get into this, but intermittent fasting is very, very popular now. It's talked about a lot because people aren't finding that reset through really good sleep anymore. And so they're trying to kind of reduce the window in which they're eating to give their digestive system more time to kind of quote unquote have that reset period.
Wow, those are some really interesting connections that I didn't know about, especially the melatonin and that. Very, very interesting. And can you test for these things, or how do you find out what's working and what's not working in someone's body? Can you run some tests or do some other things to find that out?
Yeah. Yeah. Functional medicine is really big on testing because, well, this is what I say, you don't know what you don't know. And so we really want to take a look at what's happening inside of someone's body at an individual level, because we go through so many different things throughout our life and everybody's body has gone through different events. You've may had different sicknesses or procedures or been on different medications. So everyone is super different. And I think it's important to do lab testing to figure out what's happening for you. So what I do for my clients is we do a very comprehensive panel panel that looks at some of the normal things that traditional doctors will look at. So like your cholesterol levels, a cholesterol panel, your blood glucose, insulin, and A1C, some of those normal metabolic panels. But then it's important to look at kidney markers, liver markers, some vitamin and mineral biomarkers as well. So I think it's always a great idea to get a very comprehensive panel done to really look at how things are working together or maybe not working together so efficiently. And then you can kind of get into more specialized testing once you have a good understanding of where the problem might be coming from. So starting with that more comprehensive panel, I think is important so that you know where to start digging further. And so that might look like a hormone panel. So for some of my clients, we'll do Dutch testing, which is a really comprehensive hormone panel. Some women may be familiar with that because it gives you a lot of really great information on what your hormones are doing and doing throughout the day and how they're being broken down. You can even test your cortisol levels too. Sometimes stress can look like really high cortisol, but sometimes long-term stress can actually look like low cortisol as well. So that's something that is really, really important to test. And then when it comes to the gut, there's specific testing for that as well. That's actually probably the most common specialized test that I do with my clients is a stool sample, which is not fun for anyone, but it gives us a really good amount of information on what's going on in the gut. So we know, what to fix, what we need to treat so that we can get your gut back into balance and you can relieve the symptoms that you're experiencing. So I am such a proponent for lab testing because I think that is one part of my health journey that I neglected. I, got really frustrated with doctors for a while. And so I kind of swore them off and I was like, nope, I'm going to do this on my own. And, I'm not testing my own blood or anything like that. And so had I gotten testing done, I probably could have gotten to the root cause of my symptoms a lot more, I guess, a lot faster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point that you're mentioning there. Because like you said, we don't know what we don't know. So until we take a look, we can't really tell what's happening. So how can people work with you if this episode spoke to them and aligned with them and they'd like to know more about their body and their gut? How can they connect with you and work with you? What kind of programs and services do you offer?
Yeah. Well, I am a virtual health coach, so I can work with pretty much anyone within the US. I can provide lab testing to anyone in the US except for New York and New Jersey, unfortunately. But I typically work one-on-one with clients. And so I always offer free consultations to make sure that we're a good fit for each other because health coaching is a very unique relationship. It's not like your doctor that you see, once a year, twice a year, maybe, I'm really, checking in on you and understanding everything that's going on in your life. So I want to make sure it's a good fit. So I always start with consultations to better understand what someone's goals are. And so I'm confident that I'm the right fit for them because there's so many different types of practitioners out there and types of coaches and things like that. So if people are interested in, chatting about some of their concerns and to see if lab testing is right for them, they can just go to my website. It's Rachel Claire with an E, HHC.com. And I'm rachelclaire.hhc on most social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, you name it, I'm there. But yeah, I do one-on-one coaching. I can provide lab testing, specialized testing, like I mentioned, the Dutch test or GI testing. And I'm working on some virtual programs right now, some mini courses that I'm hoping to release here soon. So it's kind of like a DIY, do-it-yourself course that you can really just get educated on your body and how to really build sustainable sustainable lifestyle and nutrition habits, because that's really the foundation of where I start with most of my clients anyway.
Yeah, that sounds like an amazing start to a holistic health journey and actually finding out what's going on with your body and how you can realign yourself to find more energy and more health and strength. So, yeah, that sounds wonderful. And we will be linking to all of Rachel's offerings in the show notes as well. So be sure to check there on how you can connect with her through her website and on the social channels. And you can watch some of her videos and find out what she's all about. Well, this has been another incredible episode, and I really hope our listeners have enjoyed this journey into functional medicine and gut health as much as I have. I have to say, I've learned so much in the last 30 minutes, so thank you so much for bringing your wisdom and knowledge today, Rachel. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. I am so passionate about functional medicine and women's health. And I, will talk about it to anyone who's wanting to listen, because my life has changed so much since really getting on top of my health. And I think it's such a transformational experience that I just wish everyone could have.
Yeah, exactly. And especially if you're dealing with things that you have no answer to. And unfortunately, that can stretch into even years for people before they find anything. So, yeah, I think hugely important topic to keep discussing. And thank you so much for shining a light on that and your passion about that. And take really great care, Rachel. And hopefully we'll connect again soon.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a blast.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen in. If you enjoy the Journey podcast, please support us by subscribing, sharing on social media, and leaving us a review. We appreciate you. And you can find more of The Journey on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our website, thejourney.com. Sending you love and courage, and see you next time.